Hello there, welcome to Blitz Transmissions. This is the Blitzcast number 59. I'm Tommy, and before we get into the content of this episode of the Blitzcast, as always, make sure to check out the laundry list of links that can be found in the description below. If you're not yet subscribed on YouTube, you should definitely do so because guess what? I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this podcast episode early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you'd like to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion. For just 99 cents a month, it gives you access to all my reviews early, exclusive exclusive badges, priority replies in my comment section, and you get to vote on what I review next for the channel, just like the Patreon members do. If you would like, you could check out all of the social media links that can be found in the description below, like my Discord server. You can also find my Instagram, my Blitz Bounties Instagram, my X page, my TikTok, my Gmail, blitztransmissions@gmail.com. And then on top of that as well, if you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could head over to the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. All those links found in the description below. So, hello everyone. Welcome again. We have had a pretty busy week. You may be wondering, wow, Tommy, why is this podcast releasing on a Tuesday and not on the usual Saturday? Well, I'll tell you what, guys. The shift that I'm on at work makes it extremely difficult for me to keep up with specifically a Saturday upload because I get home from work so late. It's like a second shift hours thing. It switches every month. Next month I won't really have that issue, but we had a lot go on Blitz Transmissions in the last week as well. So I'm going to jump into all that. We'll get all that covered here as soon as I get this pulled up here just to do our little housekeeping here. So, what has gone down on Blitz Transmissions since the last episode of the Blitzcast? It's been over a week. So in the past 10 or so days, I have released 2 reviews out on the channel. Less reviews than I would like to be pushing out. As you know, with me, I have a ton of stuff I need to review. I'm hoping that, this next month, my schedule will be a little less packed as it has been this month. I mean, today I spent, it was supposed to be an off day, and I still even spent most of my day doing overtime stuff for work. So, let's see, we have my review for the Black Series Imperial Death Trooper premium electronic helmet made by Hasbro. We also have my review for the Black Series The Stranger Chimere from Hasbro as well. So you can check out both those reviews out now on my YouTube channel. I also released a video on YouTube about some Star Wars news, which we will kind of dip our toes into this week, but since I did a dedicated video topic on it this past week, I don't really see a reason for me to make it the main theme of the podcast. It's also not something that interests me enough, so we're going to just kind of tell you to watch that video. Go over to YouTube, watch that video. I like doing discussion topics for Star Wars, and it was nice to have a topic that really interested me enough to want to do a discussion topic on it. I also streamed a lot. Actually, after I'm done recording this, I'll be on another live stream. I'll have been on 3 live streams 3 days in a row. So the other video I released, which coincides with 2 of the streams, I guess, would be I did a predictions video, as I always do. Nowadays, I do them for both Black Series and the Vintage Collection for the Hasbro panels, because there was a Hasbro brand panel at MCM London Comic-Con 2025. So I did drop a video for my predictions for that stuff. So that was cool. That did really well on my YouTube channel. I was happy to see how well that performed. I also live streamed the reactions to the panel with my friends Hybrid Toy Reviews and Fig Fury. Shout out to both of those guys. Make sure to check them both out. Hybrid on YouTube and Fig Fury on Instagram. And then I streamed again the next day. I did my 4th installment of my monthly series that I do on the last Sunday of every month, Blitz Barracks, where I invite a ton of friends on. Some familiar faces and some new ones this time around, like 212th Hunter, Skywalker Hendrix, Hybrid Toy Reviews, Shelf Life, Moocher's 3D Printing Lab. If you don't know Darth Moocher, he's also the host of Sarlacc Digest, and also the Stone Mandalorian and Star Wars Collective, and our last-minute special guest was Fig Fury joined us once again, our Chase variant guest. So, and then also on top of that, with all the excitement of MCM London, I have to give a special shout out to Chris K, who is a member of the ARC Trooper tier of the Patreon. He took his son to MCM London. They got to check out the Hasbro booth, and he sent me some really awesome high-resolution shots, close-up shots of the likenesses of all of the newest Black Series and TVC reveals from both New York Comic Con and from MCM London. So that was awesome. I shared those on my Instagram and in my Discord. And after this, as this comes out, I will have been on another live stream over on the Sarlacc Digest YouTube channel, being our latest installment of our Toy Chest series over on Sarlacc Digest. I believe I'm going to speak from the future here. I was joined by Darth Moocher, Scott Solo, and my good friend Alexander Storm of the Shadow Nose Network YouTube channel. So that was a lot of fun. I said that was a lot of fun. It hasn't happened yet, but it was a lot of fun because I love streaming with those guys. So great stuff there. There's lots to look forward to on Blitz Transmissions. Like I said, it's going to be pretty busy this next month. I mean, I have so much stuff that I'm backed up on that I need to review, and there's just been a lot of news, and just, again, work has been really busy, so I'm going to try and keep up with it in the month of November a little bit more consistently than I did in the month of October, but that is the reality of things like this. You're always seeking to reach higher, always reaching higher. If you know, you know that. That was one of the mottos at my high school, was always reaching higher. So let's see what else we got here. So I had somewhere else I was going with that. Oh, happy Halloween to all my people in America who celebrate the holiday of Halloween. This Friday will be October 31st, Halloween. So in just a few short days, that'll be a thing. So happy Halloween. I can't wait for November 1st when I can tear all the fall and Halloween decorations down in the house and replace them with my favorite time of year, Crema. I love me some Christmas. So I love Thanksgiving with Christmas decorations up. I feel like it just matches the vibe more. So excited for that. And you guys are going to see me be a Christmas nut for the next 2 months here. If you know me, you know that that's just how I am. Let's see. Anything else that I want to talk about housekeeping wise? I don't think so. I think we're pretty caught up. Actually, before the next Blitzcast episode comes out, I will have live streamed my my winning or the winner, I should say, whoever won the latest Patreon giveaway, which in this case is the Vintage Collection Cantina Adventure Set 4-pack from Hasbro. So that'll be cool. Really excited to give that away, a larger item. So I love giving away the larger items. All prizes are voted on by the existing ARC Troopers in the Patreon. So, let's see. Star Wars news. Visions comes out, so that'll probably be the topic of the next episode of the Blitzcast, will be Visions Volume 3. So I'm really excited to check out Visions Volume 3. And I did also release a video a week or two ago with the trailer of Visions Volume 3, like the big trailer, the official one. You can see my reaction and discussion to that trailer out on YouTube, of course, as everything is. And then let's see, anything else? The Ben Solo movie. So here's the deal, let me get you up to speed. So this is everywhere. I got my information from the Hollywood Reporter. No, they were not the first news source to report on it, but when they're reporting on it, I deem it a lot more trustworthy because they're a historically reliable source. So what they do is what's going on with this Ben Solo story here. So Adam Driver came out and talked to wasn't the Associated Press. He did an interview recently, and he kind of, because it's no longer a thing, he kind of spilled the beans. So I guess shortly after the release of Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, back in 2019, Adam Driver met up with Steven Soderbergh. They put together a screenplay for a movie, a sequel to the Rise of Skywalker film, being The Hunt for Ben Solo. It was going to be a movie. Somehow Ben Solo returns after he becomes one with the Force physically in Episode 9. And they have to find him. So I'd imagine it'd be centered around Rey and Finn and Poe trying to track down Ben Solo. And Ben Solo navigating what it's like to have been, Space Hitler. And how the galaxy will react to that now. But I'm a good guy now, which is kind of something we're going to talk about today on the Blitzcast. If you if you couldn't tell by the title. So, let's see. I don't really care about this idea. So really, Ben Solo, the hunt for Ben Solo was pitched to Lucasfilm. They said, "Yes, we like this. Let's go pitch it to Disney." They pitched it to Disney. It made it all the way up to Bob Iger. Bob Iger said, no. Bob Iger's the CEO of Disney at the time, and he said, that's not happening. No, I don't understand how Ben Solo could be alive. I tend to agree with Bob Iger. Now I understand that you could have gone the angle of, well, him and Rey have that forced dyad going on, and that's a new concept that they introduced with The Rise of Skywalker in the movies. They can make the argument that somehow Ben Solo returns because of everything that happens, and, I just feel like it would turn the whole Star Wars fandom on its head. Like, the idea that the sequels did a lot of things that a lot of legacy fans, I call them, fans that have been around for a long while, some of them since the beginning. They were there when the books were written. I feel like I'd be with them, those legacy fans. Like, the sequel trilogy did so many gigantic changes to the Star Wars lore and to Star Wars canon. I mean, killing Luke, Han, and Leia in the 3 movies, doing so much to that story, the universe, changing things that people had as their headcanon based on expanded universe, now called Legends, and changing character tropes, things like that. And I feel like introducing another thing so soon after the release of the sequel trilogy, which especially at the time, I would argue even now it's still controversial, which at this point I think it's beating a dead horse to have heated debates about the sequel trilogy, but that's my personal take. But yeah, I think when it comes to the sequels, it's it was just too fresh. The wound was too fresh with how people felt about the sequels for them to follow up and double down on the sequels by doing a hunt for Ben Solo. Aside from that, I just don't see, again, kind of back to my previous point, because I totally got sidetracked. I don't see how that could work, and how fans could be satisfied with, okay, now all of a sudden you physically become one with the Force, and now you can come back. Force dyad or no Force dyad, I feel like it just wasn't the smartest decision. I think Bob Iger made the right call shooting down this pitch. That said, I would like to see a Ben Solo story, and you would have seen it on, I think it's part of the title of my video on this, is that I released on the channel, which is it was the right character, but it was the wrong pitch for the right character. I think Ben Solo is a story. I think his character is a story that needs told on screen. I know there's plenty of comic books and novels and bits and doodads and encyclopedias that tell you about how Ben Solo becomes Kylo Ren, but I think that story is very necessary to be seen on screen. And I think that doing a movie or a limited series on how Ben Solo becomes Kylo Ren, how he becomes seduced by the dark side on screen, leading up to the events of the sequel trilogy, would be a lot more impactful and kind of serve the same purpose that the Clone Wars served, the 2008 Clone Wars, of adding context and kind of filling in plot holes and making people feel more comfortable with questionable things, questionable decisions that they had reactions to with the prequel trilogy. I mean, it really, I would like to think that a project about Ben Solo becoming Kylo Ren would elevate the sequel trilogy the same way that the Clone Wars has elevated the prequel trilogy. So that's pretty much my thoughts. I kind of talk about it a little bit more in depth in that video. So I would say, again, check that out, because that's really not what I want to talk about as much as I want to talk about the weekly topic this week. So, you guys know I've been on a Jesus kick lately. I've been a Jesus freak here on Blitz Transmissions on the Blitzcast here, where I get much more personal and intimate with you guys. And I touched on this the last few times I've talked about more philosophical topics on the channel, and I think that one that I want to focus on this week is the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that is very difficult for us to grapple with as people, and it's something that I have been working really hard to improve how I handle forgiveness probably the last 2 or 3 months at this point. And I think that I'm at a point now where I can talk about my experience with forgiveness and the process of forgiveness. I've been helped a lot by Cliff Connectley, who is a Christian speaker and a pastor. And I really respect him, and I really like what he has to say about our faith. And he's a great role model in the Christian community. Him and his son Stuart, great, fantastic. I watch and listen to. I consume so much of their work, their preaching, especially when they're preaching on college campuses and stuff. They have some great discourse with non-believers and stuff like that. Let me preface, as always, when I say this, I'm not trying to make you or force it down your throat to become a Christian. I'm just talking from my personal experience. I'm going to talk about Star Wars, obviously, here, and how I see connections between Star Wars, which is my second favorite thing next to my faith as far as things that I like to consume. I think that it would be great if you could hear me out. If not, that's no problem at all. And I think that you should just click off this video if this isn't what you want to hear about. Excuse me. It's been a long day. I haven't had enough water today, so throat's a little dry. Let's see. Where to begin? Let's start with Star Wars. How about that? So I think one of the greatest stories of forgiveness in Star Wars comes from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. The whole idea of the story between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and, well, Luke Skywalker and really who he knows is underneath the veil of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, his father, is that Luke has this tendency that he will not give up on his father. He won't do it. Luke is advised to give up on his father by mentors like Obi-Wan and Yoda. He's advised that he needs to destroy Darth Vader. So we all know how the story goes. Luke destroys Darth Vader, not in the physical sense by killing him. Luke destroys the idea of Darth Vader and helps his father have the strength to and the courage to come back and be Anakin Skywalker again. I think this is really important, and I think it really reflects on my religious beliefs and the ideas that Christianity teaches us about forgiveness. But I kind of want to dive a little deeper into, the Star Wars portion of it. And I have other examples we can talk about as well. Because this is kind of twofold. I want to talk about forgiveness, and I want to also talk about having forgiveness for yourself, giving yourself some grace. And I think that forgiveness and grace kind of go hand in hand. So when it comes to Luke and Vader, Darth Vader has committed some of the most unforgivable atrocities in Star Wars. He committed the genocide of the Jedi Order at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. We've witnessed him on screen choke out mothers in front of their children. We've witnessed him on screen just decimate innocent people. We've witnessed him on screen command one of the most oppressive regimes in all of Star Wars history, the Galactic Empire. A lot of us in our flesh, we would say as people that Darth Vader is not deserving of forgiveness for the things that he's done. Luke Skywalker does not see it that way because he sees his father and he loves his father. And there's a difference between selfish love and selfless love. I've talked about this on the Blitzcast before, where selfish love is what turned Anakin toward the dark side. Anakin was acting selfishly out of his love for Padme instead of selflessly, whereas Luke Skywalker acts selflessly toward Vader, his father, and that is what pushes Vader over the edge. I think when it comes to this particular story, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a difference between forgiveness and justice. I saw a great clip from Cliff Connectley today, actually, before I recorded this, where a non-believer who used to be a Christian was asking him, what is the limit? Like, when does forgiveness mean justice is null and void? Is there a limit to how much we can forgive as people? The idea in the Christian faith is that we are all dirty, rotten sinners, and that we all are so, we don't realize how close we are to being those that we judge, those that we gossip about, to being those that we hate in some cases. And that is just our tendency. That's our flesh. That's how we are. That's how our flesh wants to respond. And a lot of times our flesh wants to respond with vengeance and revenge and anger, and we act on those emotions almost impulsively. And sometimes you have to take a step back and take a deep breath and realize, do I really need to play the game of chess that has been set up in front of me? Or can I choose to get up and walk away from this game board that's been set up before me, knock all the pieces off the table, and get up and walk away? That's a lesson that I've learned from my dad ever since I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. When I was in middle school, I was always the guy that stuck up for the little guy, and I would always get in fights in the school bathroom because I would get jumped in the school bathroom because I would always stick up for the kids that got bullied. And it was there was a lot of like just stupid gossiping and trash talking. That was the word I was looking for. You guys know the other word I was thinking of. And I remember my dad pulled me aside one time because I was really upset about all the trash talking, and my dad said, you don't have to play the game. Just don't play the game. And he told me, you're not going to get it until you're older. Here I am at 24. I'm twice as old as I was back then, and I'm still working on that life lesson. But I understand it now much more fully than I did when I was 11 or 12. Luke Skywalker does the same thing. When Luke is dueling Vader, he has all these things going through his head. You have Obi-Wan and Yoda telling Luke that Luke needs to destroy Darth Vader physically. Like, he needs to kill his own father in order to bring balance to the Force. You have Palpatine, from the dark side perspective of it, telling Luke that, he needs to strike Vader down. Luke ends up dueling Vader, and out of his anger, because of his love for his sister and knowing that Vader knows about Leia, Luke almost kills Vader. He almost does kill his own father. And there's a lot, and again, this movie's been out for like over 40 years. We know the story. Luke is hacking away at Darth Vader, cuts off his hand, and Luke sees the circuitry that is left where Darth Vader's hand used to be. And Luke sees himself in Vader. I have that's me. I have a droid hand. I'm one step away from being just like my father in this way. Luke then turns around, lays his weapon down, and says, I will not turn to the dark side. You have failed, Your Highness, to Palpatine. And it's through Palpatine feeling the need to destroy Luke that Vader ends up making the selfless decision for the first time, acting selflessly out of love. And that's what brings balance to the Force. Until somehow Palpatine returned, of course. That's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. A great story for another time. So, I think that what all this tells us about forgiveness is that we can initially respond with our flesh, and we have to remember that things like forgiveness are important because we are so close, without even realizing it, to being the thing that we swore to destroy, to being the very thing we hate, to being the things that we don't stand for. We're very close to becoming that. And I think that if you let your ego get a hold of you and you don't realize, and you choose to be ignorant to just how close we all really are to becoming those things, that can be very dangerous for us. I see it in my faith. I see people in my faith who think that they're this morally superior person because they have faith. I see people all the time that think that they're morally superior without faith. Neither one makes sense to me because we are at the same level. That's the idea, and that's kind of the message I want to get across this week on the Blitzcast, is that we are in fact on the same level. I mean, I literally deal in the justice system at work all the time. And yes, the justice system is important. Like, yes, like but I think that forgiveness is equally as important, if not more. Now, if someone commits a violent crime, for example, yes, that person needs to not be in society with the rest of us for a while. Not necessarily forever, but, depending on the severity of the crime, of course. But if somebody hurts you, that person should not be able to be around for a little bit. They have to have a consequence for their actions and that's what we call justice. That's our justice system. And the justice system, it's funny, it's not so much an eye for an eye, because the system idea of an eye for an eye is like, yeah, if you steal, your hand gets chopped off. I don't necessarily agree with that. What I do agree with, however, is that there should be consequences for your actions to protect the greater good. But also, if you harbor negative emotions and you become so angry and consumed by anger, by frustration, by sadness, the path to the dark side opens itself up, and you can become, not necessarily doesn't mean you're going to commit the same crimes that person committed unto you or to a loved one. You can become that same thing, that same kind of evil that you're trying to combat. And that's what the Bible teaches. And I really think that it's cool how I can draw that similarity and that comparison between what we see in Star Wars and what we see in real life, and and how those connect so nicely. And I think George Lucas does a great job of portraying that in the original trilogy, especially. If you cannot have it in your heart to have forgiveness, then again, I come back to, I'm getting a call from Jennifer. All right, sorry, I got a call from my beautiful fiance regarding the grocery shopping that she's doing right now. Shout out to Jen for doing that. Well, after I had a long day today. Usually we go together, but I've been very busy today, and Jen was very gracious to go without me this time around. Where was I? Forgiveness. Forgiveness is very important. I've said it a few times now. If you can't forgive, you can't move on. That's the idea. That there's a reason people say forgive and forget, and I don't think that forgive and forget necessarily means the same thing as, and when we hear turn the other cheek, when we hear forgive and forget, it doesn't necessarily mean let people walk all over you, pretend things never happened, because justice and trust are two completely different things in life. And I think with forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness is so that you don't harbor negative emotions. Forgiveness is also something that, and this is what the Bible teaches, forgiveness is an idea that you can say I'm sorry and still be working. I'm sorry, you can say I forgive you, but you can still be working on forgiveness. You could have to say I forgive you, whether it's in your head or physically to that person, over and over and over again, because forgiveness is not a one and done. Forgiveness is a process that we have to work through, because again, we are combating the response of our flesh, which is acting out of vengeance, acting out of anger, acting out of upset feelings, acting out of sadness. And it can cause us to react to things negatively and actually escalate the situation. And I'm guilty of it, and everybody's guilty of it. Nobody's perfect. Like that's important to notice, to be humble enough to realize that forgiveness is a process. I actually didn't, really think about that till very recently. Again, Cliff Connectley, once again, talking about forgiveness being a process and how you can have to forgive someone 100 times for the same thing, because that seeking forgiveness is what's going to make things better for you and for the people that have hurt you. And we should want that for everybody. I believe in forgiveness very deeply. I believe that your actions don't define you forever. I really do. I truly believe that. I believe that, like Darth Vader, like Kylo Ren, like so many other characters in Star Wars, like a more contemporary example even, from a show that a lot of people don't like, Obi-Wan Kenobi, we see Reva. You are not defined, and that's really the message of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, is it not? Forgiveness and grace. You are not defined by your actions. You're not defined by what other people say about you. And other people are people are going to say things about you. People are going to judge you. They're going to gossip about you forever until the end of time. And it's up to you to decide how you react to that. And Darth Vader gets to a point where Darth Vader feels like he just, yep, this is who I am. He tells Luke, "It is too late for me, son." Luke tells him, "No, it's not. It's never too late." We have the same relationship between Rey and Ben Solo, formerly Kylo Ren, in the sequel trilogy. Very much echoing what we see in the original trilogy. Maybe not written as well or portrayed as well, but it's still the same basic concept that you are not defined by what you have done. It is never, ever too late to change. It is never too late. And I think that that's something that I do a lot, something that other people do a lot. I see it from friends, family, everything in my life. It's once you're bad, always bad. Once you've screwed up, never again. Never trusting again, never believing in this person again. Dude, I'm no better. Like, you know, again, if you're gonna, how are you any better than that person? If you're validating to them, like they say, "I feel like I can't change," and you tell them, "Nope, you can't," you're validating that, and that is more harmful to that person than, you know, helping them through their struggles. You know, if someone shows they want to change, you have to encourage that. It's very important in life. I want to talk about another example of this from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, because I feel like the other half of this is grace. I feel like grace is very important. Having grace for yourself as well as others. That's something I've struggled with a lot, is having grace for myself. Obi-Wan Kenobi has to not only forgive, you know, tell Anakin that he's sorry. Obi-Wan Kenobi also has to forgive himself in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. That's something that that's his main struggle in the show. You see, he's a broken man because he can't forgive himself for what happened to Anakin, and he blames himself. And Ahsoka does the same thing. And we see it in the Ahsoka series. Ahsoka has to work through this same idea. You need to give yourself some grace sometimes and acknowledge that you're not perfect. You're never going to do everything perfectly. Nothing's ever going to work out, hunky-dory 100% of the time. If you're able to look past shortcomings in others, you can also look past shortcomings in yourself. It should always be a process. You should always be seeking to want to be a better person. Be selfless, be charitable, be positive, be honorable, be responsible, be all these things. But you're going to screw up. You're going to fumble the ball. There's peaks and valleys to a journey. I said this, I think, maybe a week or two ago on the Blitzcast. It's not a linear path to being a good person. You have highs, you have lows. And I think giving yourself grace and having forgiveness for yourself is very important. Now, obviously, I do that through prayer, and you can do that in many other ways as well. Even just exercises, mental exercises, acknowledging, what's right and what's wrong, and, missteps and things like that. Yeah, I think forgiveness is incredibly powerful. I think it is. It's done wonders for me in my life, especially recently. I've completely changed my outlook on the concept of forgiveness. I think part of it was realizing that justice and forgiveness are two different things, and realizing that grace and forgiveness go hand in hand. If I'm unhappy with myself, how can I have forgiveness in others if I can't forgive myself? How can I judge others when I myself am so close to being that same kind of a person? You have to also realize, of course, people have to want to change, but you also have to not give up on people. If you have a selfless love for others, you have to not give up on them. We see that with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. Obi-Wan Kenobi even gives that same forgiveness to Reva. Reva's done terrible things. She's done terrible, awful things. We see her kill people in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And Obi-Wan tells her it's never too late. You are not defined by who you were. you always have a chance to change and move forward. Asajj Ventress. Let's really talk about a character in Star Wars who exhibits these kinds of qualities. Asajj Ventress is probably one of the most compelling stories of giving yourself grace and learning to forgive yourself in all of Star Wars. I mean, Asajj Ventress went from being a Night Sister to being a Jedi Padawan, reacting and responding with her flesh, and then being attracted to the dark side by Count Dooku, and thinking, yeah, it's too late for me. I can't come back from this. Becomes a dark assassin, accepts that she is just an evil person, and then she, through losing everything, finds the strength within herself. She goes back to her roots, back to the Night Sisters, and she becomes something more. And she realizes through sense of family, through the family that she has in the Night Sisters, which is something that she lacked when she was on the dark side of the Force. We see her become a bounty hunter, and she acts selflessly. She could have totally delivered the payload on that one episode on the train where she's with Boba and Bossk and Dengar and all those guys. She could have totally delivered the payload to that king and chosen to act selfishly. She chose to act selflessly. And that's where she starts to have grace and for herself and forgive herself. And that's another great example of a Star Wars character, an amazing Star Wars character, by the way, of a character that learns to give herself grace. I think it's a very important story to tell. And I think Star Wars tells it very well. I think Star Wars has done it very, very well. And I've had a lot of fun the last month or two really diving into, diving back into my faith a lot more. And as I'm like reading stuff and hearing stuff, I'm like, wow, Star Wars teaches this message. I've always had this message right in front of me, but it's kind of opened my eyes to, drawing all these similarities. It's really great. And I think that Star Wars has proven to be a great influence on young people. I think that just naturally teaching all of these messages and teaching all of these things through intelligent storytelling and visual storytelling has done a great job of helping young kids grow up and have morals. I mean, we look up to characters like Captain Rex. We look up to characters like Ahsoka Tano. Now, I bet you there's people that love Asajj Ventress' story of redemption. People love the story of Vader's redemption. There's people that love the sequel trilogy and love Ben Solo's redemption. I think that it's great to see those kinds of similarities, and it's great to see that there's such a popular IP that promotes positive morals. Having forgiveness and grace for others is very difficult. It's a very, very tough task, but you will feel a sense of solace and peace within yourself when you're able to do that for others, and you should hope that others would want to do the same for you. So, with that, a little bit of a shorter episode of the Blitzcast this week because I have to skedaddle over to the Sarlacc Digest podcast, talk some Star Wars toys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Blitzcast. I will try my best to get back. No, do or do not. There is no try. I will get back on track with the schedule of the Blitzcast. I appreciate you guys bearing with me. Hope you've been enjoying all the live streams and all the content lately. And as always, make sure to subscribe. Check out all the links in the description below. I got some Star Wars toys all over the place I got to play with. I got to open. I got more Star Wars toys I need to order soon. It's going to be nuts, guys. There's only exciting things coming forward. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Blitzcast. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. Squad 2, pick your targets. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's the reinforcement?